Formula Access, welcome. We got another episode today. Today we bring you more IndyCar. Today we bring you another title. I am on a perpetual hunt for new titles, for new areas of the business, for new series. And today I have been chasing somebody at this team down for quite some time now, and we finally got him. Today we've got Lee Zohlman from Juncos Hollinger Racing and IndyCar. Lee, welcome, and thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Ryan. I'm ready to bring the heat and hopefully fulfill and live up to all of your expectations. But heard a lot about you and very excited to be here, ready to answer any questions. I mean, this is, I think you and I are very similarly aligned. It's motorsports and it's business. Those are what we love. So happy to answer anything that you want to go into.
It's funny that you say that because anyone that listens to this show knows I'm a big LinkedIn guy. Yep. And I'm sitting here staring at your LinkedIn profile, and it is
scary.
IndyCar, F1, sponsorship, business development, creating partnerships, building businesses, generating revenue, increasing brand recognition, expert facilitator. Like this, I should put this on my doorstep of my house, like our family's, MO. So yeah. I'm actually really excited to have you on the show.
Great to be here.
So for everyone listening that doesn't pay attention to anyone but the driver and the team principals, Lee, who are you and what do you do for the team?
Yeah, pretty simple. I reside in Miami, Florida. The whole team is in Indianapolis. I picked the long straw, so I got to be in Miami. I write emails and make phone calls, get on Zoom calls, and they send me a check every other week. That's basically what I do. That's my stock line, but really anything revenue generating for the team falls under my purview. So most of that is going to be either traditional sponsorship, strategic partnerships, anything along those lines for the Juncos Hollinger racing team.
Commercial is always all things revenue, right? Yeah. Like unpack that for guests, because I think a commercial officer in different industries. I'm in oil and gas. The chief commercial officer is the deal maker,
right?
And so as it relates to a racing team,
yep.
What are your core responsibilities and day to day look like?
Yeah, definitely. The core responsibility is just finding anything to drive revenue to the team. We're a professional sports team. It's millions and millions of dollars to run this team. And we obviously need to make money. So we have some amazing pillars that we stand on in marketing, and we bring a lot of value in a lot of different ways. So we look for partners that want to jump on that bandwagon with us and benefit from what we bring to the table. And that falls with me. So as I was saying, a lot of that is what people would call sponsorship. I actually call it strategic business development partnerships, because sure, we can do sponsorship, but really that word is not appropriate for what we do. What we really look for are strategic partners. And I love putting together deals, but I love connecting people even more and seeing them be successful. And that's something that I get to do on a day-to-day basis with some great partners.
I have always been extremely fascinated around the sponsorship partnership conversation. And a lot of our guests have centered around the activation component of it. Not too many have been around the actual development, we'll call it the sales part of that.
The torturous part.
Yeah, maybe. You kind of sound like a hunter. So you kind of sound like somebody that enjoys that part.
I do.
But what for a company like Juncos, obviously you've got the World Wide Web at your disposal. Yep. I mean, do you just Google a company? Do you look for certain sectors? Do you look for certain sizes? Like who are you looking for as your, call it, prospecting?
That's a really great question. And it's not an easy answer because it's a little bit of everything. So with our team, as far as prospecting goes, it's done in a few different ways. Yes, it's done as identifying different industry sectors that would fall, that would bode well for our team. And we do look at that. We also look at regional plays. So we look at, okay, we have how many races in California, how many races in the Midwest. Maybe there are companies out here that they don't want to partner with the team, but they want to come out and have a great experience with some of their staff or some of their prospects or good clients. So we actually move in a way to sell a hospitality experience. So if I'm a company and I want to take 10 of my best clients to an NBA game, I'm going to be in the suite way up high. I'm going to be eating kind of cold pasta and chicken tenders, some mediocre wine, right? And I'm not going to get to meet the players, but with what we do, you can bring those prospects. You can meet the drivers, sit down, have lunch with the drivers, do photo, video ops with the drivers, get right up close to the car, see the guts of the car. And then one of the best things we can do with the right partners is we can take them into the pits during the race. You can't do that in F1. You can't do that in NASCAR. We can do that in IndyCar. We can take them into the pits at the Indy 500, the greatest spectacle in racing. And that really is a money can't buy experience. So we sell those experiences, and then we sell partnerships, either regionally or nationally. Then as far as prospecting goes, we have agents all over the world also that are sponsorship finders, and they'll come to us with different companies, and we have to go through exploratory and qualification and things like that. But you talk about the hunt, and it is a hunt, and I do enjoy the hunt. We're very fortunate also that I must say we've had some nice incoming as well. People know who we are. We've got some phenomenal drivers on our team, some very well-known names, and people want to be attached to those names and to the team. And so we've had some nice incoming as well, not as much as some of the more popular F1 teams, but listen, we're a mid-sized IndyCar team. It just so happens we have more social media followers than any other IndyCar team. We have almost as many as NASCAR through all of our drivers and the team, and that's a pillar that we lean in on. And then we also have our ownership groups, businesses, and our other partners. So we lean in a lot on pushing the B2B networking. I hope that it helps.
It does. And to me, that's a really interesting fact. I mean, you have, the driver favorite, and so you've got Roman and your team, and, and that's a big deal. But what do you think lends to having such a strong social media following as an IndyCar team?
Well, with Roman, with the team channels, Roman's channels, Agustin, Lindsay Brewer, and Indy Next, collectively we have a lot of followers. So there's a lot of different ways, obviously in social media marketing to utilize that. And, that's really where it comes from. But, we have companies right now that we're talking to that, the Latino market is really important to them. And Agustin is a fantastic driver. He's heavily followed in the Hispanic community. And so we're very fortunate to have a diverse driver lineup. We have Roman, who's a worldwide celebrity. Agustin, who's a great driver that this Latino community follows heavily. And then Lindsay Brewer, who also resonates with a whole other crowd, especially in Indy Next. So we have this diverse driver lineup, and I think it's more diverse than any other, in a very positive way, than any other IndyCar team.
I always forget about Lindsay, but Lindsay kind of to me encapsulates the way that drivers get it done right now. Is you create such a personal brand for yourself that you almost align with another brand, with C4, and and it doesn't make it easy, it doesn't make it happen, but it does certainly allow you to focus on more important things when you have that brand alignment very early on, and the support of that. And she does a lot of business development work for them and marketing work for them, so She in a way works for them. And I think drivers forget about that when they're asking for sponsorships. I got this, the Motorsports marketing book on Amazon. As much as this conversation comes up, I was like, yeah, I might as well get informed on this. And so I read the book, and it honestly opened up my mind a bit. And the whole time, I honestly, like, this is not a plug for her, but it was like, she gets this.
Yeah.
Like, she understands this at a whole different level than a lot of drivers that I talk to.
I mean, she's a proper racing driver. Is she the best out there in Indy Next? No, she's definitely not the worst, but she's training and she wants to continue improving. And good on her, right? I mean, this is that she's living the dream that she wants to live. But she is a proper racing driver, and it never escapes me how difficult it is what they do. And I think as people watch races and races, they forget, I think the average fan forgets just how difficult it is what they do, and that there is only a handful of people on this earth that can do that can think that fast, process information that fast, have the feeling for the race car, know exactly what to do when different scenarios arise, be able to give appropriate and proper feedback to their engineers at 200 miles an hour or more, all while keeping their wits about them and not crash into 4 or 5 other people around them. Listen, it's not easy at all. And so I don't care whatever personalities are out there as the drivers go. I have respect for them from an athlete point of view, from what they do. And that goes with, all the drivers. But, Lindsay, Romain, Agustin, especially Agustin. I mean, for us, he came in 2 years ago, never drove an Indy car. Now we're seeing quali and practice top 10s from him.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing great improvement from him. I mean, it's a completely different car than what he was a champion driving in Argentina. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
I'm so glad that IndyCar decided to do the Netflix series, because I honestly, I've been around it through interactions, and we have a race here in St. Louis, and I've been around it, but to get in there and kind of like, it almost forces you into the team to really get to know a driver like Augustine and like his story and like his stuff. I've really liked this concept that Netflix has around motorsports, and I do remember that that episode, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, the stories are pretty incredible.
So, as chief commercial officer, and I don't want this to sound like the dumb question, and maybe unpack it a little bit, but what does success look like in that particular role, in a commercial role inside of a racing team? What does that look like?
It would be exactly what you think. It would be bringing in new partners and bringing revenue to the team. But I think, to give you the honest answer is what does success look like? I'll tell you one of the things. I'll tell you one of the ways that I've felt successful and that I've enjoyed with this role. We brought in a great partner, 100% Sunglasses. They're globally recognized brand in performance eyewear, and we had a big race in Long Beach, California. One of my favorite tracks in Long Beach. If there are any Long Beach fans out there, it's like one of my favorites. So we had the Long Beach race, and we had our reps out from 100% Sunglasses, and we're in our hospitality unit at the race. And there was another gentleman there, and he owns, I think, 16 or more like really cool apparel boutiques around the U.S. And we're all sitting, we're having lunch together. They didn't know each other. They hadn't met. And I was talking to the guy who owns boutiques, and I asked, do you carry sunnies at your place? And he says, yeah, we do really well with Oakley. I said, well, because he saw everyone around. We all had 100% on. The whole team has them on. And I said, well, would you consider taking a look at 100%? And he goes, yeah, of course. And then I introduced him to the 100% rep who was sitting right next to him at the table. And they started talking. And now they're doing business. And, that is the B2B aspect. And there have been billion-dollar deals done in the paddock in F1 and multi-million-dollar deals many times over in both IndyCar and F1. But, that's one small example of that's, to me, what success looks like. So not only is 100% on our entire team and every picture and image that comes out, we all have our 100% on. They're seeing great traction from it. We're enjoying it because we know that we have, some of the best eyewear out there, but we're able to make new business for them. And we've done that with a couple other partners in the last in this season alone. But that story comes to mind.
It's the perfect story because you didn't say, well, if I close, $5 million a year, we can keep racing.
Yeah.
Which is probably the dumb answer. I like the way that you described that because, we talked kind of before the show had started, but, so much business happens in hospitality and in the paddock and at the track with the partners, the sponsors, the guests. And I took my wife to a race a couple of years ago and sitting in hospitality, and it was just a conversation. And somebody asked my wife what she did. She says, I run a marketing agency. And he's like, I really need marketing help.
There you go.
Like, we're just sitting there eating lunch. And,
there you go.
Of course, like what do guys talk about? We always ask what you do for a living. And I think it is almost the easiest place to be in a place of passion. Like, we're all passionate about racing. It's fascinating. It's interesting. It's competitive. And it's even more so in IndyCar because you have racers racing each other, very, very similar machinery. And, and so you got a bunch of people that their guards are down, conversations can really start to take place. And I am a 100% believer in this model that if any commercial company would like to grow their business, enhance their business, or do something that just makes them wildly interesting, get involved with a race team.
I have so many examples in my head of how that's been done. And when I first started in motorsports, when I first started selling sponsorship in motorsports, the way it was explained to me by one of my mentors was, you've got two C-level executives and the ties are off and the layers of secretaries are gone and they're just maybe eating some hot dogs in a suite and talking. And, that's the way business is done. And it really, really is true. And I'm just thinking back to a few other instances. I've done it myself and made those introductions this season alone. So, yeah, it's great. I love it.
On that particular vein, how did you even get into motorsports? What is like your origin story? Were you watching racing with your dad, with your mom? Like how did this whole thing culminate?
Yeah, it's definitely a good story. And I'll make it as succinct as possible because it can be long. I had my own.
Kevin Long.
Oh, no. Sorry for theory coming in there. I was doing sports marketing and sports sponsorship in a completely different sport. I was doing it in competitor sport. So I was bringing in sponsorship for professional triathletes and also for triathlon and running events like Ironman events and other marathons. And so I was doing that. And at the same time, my passion and what I enjoyed watching was Formula One and IndyCar. Always has been ever since I was a little kid, watching Mario and Al Unser and the 500, Wide World of Sports. Those are images that are ingrained in my head. And my father took me, we had a couple Grand Prix here in Miami in the 80s. My father took me to those Grand Prix, like great father-son bonding times. And my father and I always bonded over cars. And, my first car was a 1967 convertible Mustang. I mean, that's what my father gave me. So it's like, how do I not be a car guy, right? And so always loved car racing and cars. So I'm doing sponsorship for these other competitor sports events. And then my wife at the time, no longer married, but a whole other story. My wife at the time was working for LeBron James and his wife. And they had a smoothie bar in Miami when he played for Miami Heat. And a woman, a friend of my wife at the time, her friend came in for a smoothie, and they were just catching up and said, "Hey, there's this car race that's coming to Miami, in 6 months. Do you know anyone that knows sponsorship? Because like it's this electric car race, Formula E." And she said, "Oh yeah, my husband does sponsorship and loves car racing." And turns out the Andretti team was promoting that race, so they were putting that race on for Formula E. Long story short, I got hired on to sell that race. I got hired on with the Andretti team to sell that race. I left the marketing agency that I was working for at the time, and we had a whole sports and entertainment side that we were selling sponsorship. Left there, went to work for Andretti, selling Formula E Miami, and then I stayed on with them after, and that started me down the road and with Motorsports. So my first job was with the Andretti team, and I know you've had some of my former colleagues on.
Some of them will stay, unnamed.
Yeah. So no, it's all cool. So that's how I got started, and then I obviously it's a really small world, the world of motorsports, and started meeting a lot of people, especially in Formula One. Started doing some driver deals and representing some teams in Formula One, and just through the whole business, found myself with the role that I have now.
You have do you start and build companies too, or have you?
I have in the past. Yeah, I've started companies, I've built them, and then I've consulted with companies who are either starting up or building, mostly all in the business of sports.
Do you feel like, and I've kind of started to understand this around kind of your particular sect. Do you feel like because you've been in the captain's chair before of building or starting something from scratch that you can almost understand the C-suite's needs as you're having the conversation? Like it helps you be more effective, not only at your role of find the C-level executive at ABC company, bring them in, have a conversation, but be able to clearly articulate, not as a sleazy snake oil salesman, but as somebody that genuinely understands the pressure that they're under, the needs that they have, what they're trying to accomplish, those types of things I've often found almost accelerates your ability to, connect before you collect, as they say.
Yeah, I believe so. But more importantly, you just have to go through and get the experience. You have to know how a multi-billion-dollar company operates. You have to understand what their agency landscape could be, what their internal processes could be, what kind of vendor platforms do they have. You definitely have to get the experience to understand the right questions to ask, and that only comes through doing. And I've been fortunate that, I started doing sponsorship in some way, shape, or form a long time ago, over 25 years ago. And I've been on the brand side. So I've been the one being pitched sponsorship. I headed up AT&T brands and big brands, and I've worked on the agency side. So a lot of that comes just through experience. And, I did have some great mentors, and I just sitting in on those exploratory calls and knowing the right questions to ask, when to ask them, and what not to ask. And I think at the end of the day, I think two of my favorite topics to bring up when I'm speaking to other C-level executives at companies is, what are your challenges? Because every company has challenges. I think that's really important. And where can we be a solution? I think that could we be a solution for you? And sometimes we're not a solution. Sometimes we are a solution. So I think those are kind of two areas that I like to hit on when I'm talking to people. And people buy from people that they like as well. Yep. So I believe in let's just have a conversation. I'm not going to try to sell you on anything. I want to learn about your business. And that first conversation I have with companies, it's so much of me just trying to learn about them. It's not me telling them everything that we can do. I speak very little. It's more about just listening and learning about their companies.
You've been you've been on varying sides of this whole sponsorship
Yep.
partnership thing with drivers, with
Yep.
teams, with other industry. How does it differ between a driver and a team? So you're, representing Alexander Rossi versus, you know, Juncos.
Yep.
What is there a very, very different value proposition?
Well, yeah, and just for clarity terms, I only work for Juncos Hollinger Racing right now, so I represented Alexander previously. Uh,
Previously, yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. I
I
mean,
should
he's
have
on
clarified that when I brought it up.
and I think the world of him as a person and as a driver. But just out of full transparency, just to set the tone, I mean, driver and team deals are really different.
Yeah.
You don't have as much to sell with a driver as you do with a team, and it just has to fit for the company. Either it's going to fit for what their objectives are, or it's going to fit the budget, because some companies, they don't want to pay for a team, so then you do a driver PSA deal, and you can move it to that way. But there's more. I mean, with a team, there's just a lot more inventory to sell. We have just so much more to sell.
Hmm.
Alexander doesn't have a full marketing team, or any driver doesn't have a full marketing team on them, and they don't have 3 transporters that go 50,000 miles a year that are rolling billboards, and you know what I'm saying. So obviously they don't have the car inventory as well, because they're in the car, so they're not seen as much. But it just has to be right for the company,
Yeah.
the driver deal versus the team deal. And I like doing both. I do some PSA deals for the other drivers. Did one for Lindsay. I've done a bunch for Romain. I actually started. I was doing deals for Romain when he was back in F1, and then it was kind of nice. He moved to Miami. I live in Miami, and then come the 24 season, then we're both working for the same team. So it's been pretty cool.
Lee, I gotta tell I've actually never said this on the show, but so from day one, I have been hammering Roman to come on the show, and I will tell you, he is one of like 3 drivers that actually have responded to me, and
He's the
he he,
most responsive. Yeah.
he taught like hey, I'm really busy right now. Can you follow up with me next week? Like very, very professional and
Yep.
accessible, I guess.
Yep.
And we like just he's very busy,
So
but
busy.
we've never been
He's
able to
so
put it
busy.
together.
Yeah.
And so I took my son to the Miami Grand Prix last year,
Right.
and we were in the Champions Club, and he was coming up to speak. I don't get weird around famous people or well-known people or people that I like enjoy, whatever. Like they're just people. But I he spoke he was speaking about driving and racing
Yeah.
and whatnot, and so when it was done and all the kind of the fans kind of in the selfies walked away, I kind of went over to him, and it was like I told my son, I was like, sit over here, I'm gonna go ask him to be on the show. And like if I can't get it on email, I'm gonna get in front of him and just ask. It was
He
the sales
hasn't been
guy.
on yet, right?
No,
He
he
hasn't
hasn't.
been on the show.
So
We'll have
I walk up to him, and he goes, "Hey, Ryan." And I was
Wow.
so off put that he recognized me and knew my name. I like completely lost my train of
Yeah.
thought. Like mind blank. I have been around like the C-suite executives of Shell, like in business environments, and like that moment is the first time in my professional career where I went blank, and I was like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and then
He's very cool. I'm so happy to hear that.
yeah, he's a good guy. I like him a lot. Plus, he's always around the paddock with his kids, and
Oh yeah,
sweet.
his family is super important.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So first time on the show. If you ever want to put me off, recognize me publicly, and I'll literally lose my mind.
I'll have a chat with Roma.
It's the humble in me where I'm like, wait, what? Okay. What has been your pinch me moment in motorsports? Like you have been around you're probably one of the most diverse people around motorsports that I've actually had on the show, like barring Mario Andretti. But like you have like all these little parts of the business checked off.
Sure.
Like for you, what is a pinch me moment in motorsports?
Sure. I'm humbled that I would be even mentioned in the same breath in a motorsports business discussion as Mario. Um, I really am. It has been diverse. I haven't touched NASCAR ever, or really anything else. It's always been open wheel. So as I said, I started in FE and then IndyCar and F1. Pinch me moments. Awesome question. Um, I never lose sight. Every time I go to a race, every other weekend, every third weekend, and I'm in the pits, like with the cars taking off, like 6 feet in front of me. Almost every race, I'm like, this is cool. I'm really excited at every race. I love the business. It's really stressful. Like there's always a lot going on in my head, in our team's head. We're always balancing a lot of different things going on. But we're smiling, and we've got great sponsors, great partners now in Old Milwaukee, and took on Old Milwaukee this season. And I was with one of their reps at the 500 in the pits during the race, and I just said to her, I was like, "You can't wipe the smile off our faces," It was like it was just so cool. And she's seen a lot of events, and she said this is by far the coolest. But to answer your question, I'll give you a good pinch me moment. Here's a good one. 2015, I go to F1 race in Interlagos in Brazil. And I was on the Andretti team at the time. I asked my boss at the time, hey, I'm going to Brazil. Is there anything you could do to get me some credentials for the race? And he goes, yeah, I'll see what I can do. So he texts me and he says, hey, your credentials, just take your passport. Your credentials are at the host hotel. Go to the race team, not the race team, but go to the Formula One office in the hotel to pick up your credentials for the race. So I said, fine. So I go to the hotel. I go into the proper room, and the guy looks at my passport, and he hands me a manila envelope, and I pull out my hard card credentials, and I was like, oh, this is great. So I look at him, and I said, where are these, what's the access like for these? Where can I go? And he looks at me, he says, they're the president of the FIA's credentials. You can go anywhere. So I think that was a pinch me moment right there. There you go.
I don't want to say I know that. I've witnessed that feeling before.
Yeah.
I took my daughter to the St. Louis race last year, and same experience. Like here, I got some hard cards in my mailbox. If you want to swing by the house and grab them, you and your daughter can go. And they threw a jersey in there for my daughter, and so I grabbed all this stuff. We go to the race, and same question, like where can I go? And they're like, anywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do I need to buy tickets for the race? Because I got the invitation the night before, and I was like, who can go? And it was like, no, you're fine. Just get in your car and go to the track and just walk around like you own the place. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So, cool. My daughter's like, she'll walk into the pits, and she puts her card up. She's 14 years old, and she just thinks she's like, a celebrity.
Awesome.
I'm here. You can turn them away, but not me.
I have one other pinch me moment, which I should have said, and my daughter will kill me if she ever watches this for not saying this is her pinch me moment. So if you'll allow me a few minutes, I'll give you a pinch me moment.
Anything for a daughter, send it.
So last year, 2023, my daughter's turning 17. I was doing some work for the Mercedes F1 team. Obviously, they race at the Miami Grand Prix, and I was doing some business on Friday and Saturday with some of the team, and we're in their suite. And at the time, it was last year, right? So they had this brand new suite that they just unveiled. It's this 3-story suite, and there was like a pool, and Diplo was going to DJ, and they have obviously gourmet catered food and all of these different activities going on. I mean, it's a beautiful suite.
Yeah.
and it's very expensive for 3 days, like well into five figures for 3 days, and worth every penny. But I had business to discuss, so I go on Friday, do my business, go on Saturday, do my business. Didn't really have much to do on Sunday, race day, which is fine with me. I was just planning on staying home and watching the race. But in the back of my head, my daughter's birthday is that same week. And she had been begging me for months and months to take her to an F1 race. She'd never been to an F1 race. And, she's turning 17. And the kids in Miami in school, they're all talking about the race that's going to be in Miami.
Yep.
And so I'm sitting at the suite with the counterpart from the team. And I said, and he has three girls as well. So, he's a girl dad. And I just said to him, I said, listen, by any chance, do you have anything left for tomorrow? It's my daughter's 17th birthday in a few days. She really wanted to come. And he says, he goes, yeah, of course, no problem. He goes, sure. And I'm like thinking to myself about how much they actually cost.
Yeah.
So I call up my daughter and I said, listen, tomorrow you're coming to the F1 race. We're going to be in the Mercedes suite all day. And just that elation, that screaming was incredible. So, the end of the story to land the plane is I go home, I give her the box that the credentials come in, and they do a very good job with the whole unveiling of the box, the Mercedes team and everything, and a swag bag with everything, hats and water bottles and backpacks and all of this stuff for her. And so this is her birthday, right? So like her birthday present. And so we go to the race and, sitting there in the suite with her, eating all this great food, and said, doing shots with her. No, we're not doing shots. I'm kidding. She's only 17. I would never do shots. So
virgin shots.
So I said, by the way, the majority of people don't live like this. This is not normal. I'm like trying to keep her grounded. And I said, do you see that person over there, that tall brunette? She says, yeah. I said, that's Lais Ribeiro. She's a top supermodel, Victoria's Secret supermodel. That's her husband, Joaquim Noah. He used to play for the NBA, and they're sitting right there. And she's like, oh my God, there's celebrities in here. What she didn't know was I had gone to catering earlier in the morning, and I said, hey, it's my daughter's 17th birthday. Do you have any cake or anything that you could bring out? And they're like, oh, we'll see what we can do. We'll plan something. And so throughout the day, they keep winking at me, and the catering's like giving me a nod. And so we go throughout the day. End of the day, towards the end of the race, we're in the street. Catering comes over to me and says, bring your daughter by the bar. We go over by the bar. We're just waiting there. And a few minutes later, the entire Mercedes F1 team staff from the suite come out with an entire cake and 17 candles on it, singing happy birthday. Lais Ribeiro and Joaquim Noah come over, start clapping, singing happy birthday to my daughter. She is bright red. The entire suite has now come around singing happy birthday. I have it all on video. And she is just having the time of her life. And I guess that should be my pinch me moment. I did a good thing. Yeah.
Start with that one next time. I like the first one. The first one is perfectly fitting. That's amazing.
Yeah. So that was a pinch me moment to have that birthday cake with her at the race.
That is an awesome story. And I think that kind of lends to what motorsports is you just don't forget this stuff. And it is so much of like the father-daughter, father-son relationship. Like you just have these stories that exist forever. Both my kids have them. And, and every guest that I've had on the show, like one day when your daughter is the chief commercial officer for a team and I have her on, she's going to tell me that story from another angle. And it's always like that. It's such an experience of a lifetime. And it doesn't matter whether you're in, the oval track of St. Louis or the Miami Grand Prix or Monaco or wherever you're at. It's a really incredible experience for anyone within earshot. I mean, Holy cow.
Hopefully she takes my advice and becomes an investment banker and doesn't go into doing sponsorship for a race car team.
Well, you've got to tell me how you convinced your daughter of that, because mine is like, can I go find beauty brands, Dad, and help you with what you're doing with sponsorship? It's like, how can I say no to you?
Yeah, I don't know. I just kept harping on it.
Yeah. What didn't you expect about motorsport?
Oof, good question.
This is how our guests know it's not scripted, because everybody's like, oh.
I didn't expect the sort of the physical, mental energy toll of back-to-back racing weekends, because the sponsorship work and stuff I was doing previous, it wasn't as frequent. So it also wasn't, the deals weren't as complex, they weren't as large, there weren't as many moving parts. I think just, coming off a race weekend that Monday morning, I don't want to think about what I'm having for breakfast, right? I need a little time to decompress. And then going back and doing it again and again and again. So, and this is all good. Listen, it's good stuff. I mean, I'm fortunate to be doing what I'm doing. I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing. So this has been my dream and my goal, and this is everything I want to be doing. But I wouldn't change anything. But that part is, I wasn't expecting, just a little. Maybe I'm getting old. But I wasn't expecting kind of like that, the energy toll on it, because you're not only like walking around a track. I mean, yeah, we have scooters and golf carts, but you're doing a lot of walking. There's a lot of energy that you're giving out. So when you're hosting people and discussing business, breakfast meetings in the morning, all the way to the dinner meetings at night, there's a lot of energy that's being given out. So I think that's something I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, you're always on.
Always.
I had a guest that was in hospitality that we couldn't do the show, and I really, really wanted to have her on the show because of this story in particular. I'm glad you brought it up. But she was in Formula One, but she would tell me, the triple header back to backs, there would oftentimes be people like employees, people working,
Yep.
in the stairwells, like napping and crying because they were just so utterly like emotionally exhausted, not because they're treated like slave, none of that. It was
Right.
just, you don't have a moment to turn your brain off and like process what's going on, because it's like, I mean, imagine a fan can do a race for 2 hours. They're there for 16.
Yeah. Listen, I would not trade it again. I'm so fortunate, and I'll take every bit of that energy toll. And I also I love training physically, right? I like exercising a lot. So, I might have to be at a track at 7 a.m., but I'll wake up early just to make sure I go run or go to the gym or something. So, and I need that for my head as well. And I say that because, the days are quite long. And then you train in the morning, and then they're even longer. But yeah, that's true. Listen, I mean, we have that. People break down at the track, break down in the office. It's just like any other business. But, we work sometimes it's 7 days a week because you're working throughout the week, and then you got race weekend. So, and then you're working on the planes, and then there's the jet lag and all of that. So it definitely takes its toll, but it's amazing. I mean, I love it. I mean, we did 8 partnerships in the last 6 months. 8.
Jeez.
Yep. And they all take time. They all take time. They take energy. It doesn't matter how big or small that they are. It takes a whole staff to put things together. There are some teams that won't do 8 partnerships in a season.
Jeez. And I think for the guests listening too, I think this is where, passion supersedes kind of all fatigue. I think that anytime, it kind of goes back to the, you never work a day in your life if you love what you do or something, whatever that quote is. I just
Yeah.
honored. Um, I think that not one guest that I've ever had on the show has ever been in racing because it was a job or a paycheck. It is, I
Yep.
love what I do. And I think that
Yep.
lends to the ability to push beyond your typical boundaries. And, you've been in triathlon, what that, I
Yep.
mean, you're submitting yourself to physical, and I've done triathlons before. I
Yep.
get that. And you really discover these boundaries that you never really knew existed, even in the workplace, not just in
Yep.
physical, like sports activities, but actual professional activities. Like, how much jet lag can I tolerate? How much can I do? And there are
Yep.
things you can do to, help that. I mean, I use racing performance coaches for travel protocols, so
Yep.
in 2019, I did like 50 flights and I thought I was going to die. My face was sunken in. I was exhausted from that work travel. I did 90 flights last year because of these protocols, and I feel great.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's just it's using what drivers use every day. And that's who I talk to, is like, how do you travel the
Smart.
world
Smart.
12 months out of the year and survive? And
It's smart. And something you said really resonates, because like you look at our team, and no matter what age, gender, whatever disposition you are, anyone on the team, no matter what drama we might have as a team together, office stuff, communication, issues, whatever, on race weekend, we're all like, what's going on at the race? Like, we love racing, right? Like, okay, how's he doing right now? And, so having that common denominator together is so cool, because no matter what's going on in the business side, we all just want to win. Like, we all just want to perform really, really well. We all really respect what the drivers can do, and we do everything we can to make sure that car and that driver are perfectly set up.
I think we froze for a second. I agree. That statement is the one thing that I have taken from motorsports into the world of business, is that one common goal mindset of
Yeah.
a team. And it is, oddly enough, does not exist enough in the professional workplace, because it's like, I need a promotion, I need a title, I need a raise, I need this, I need my team to do this for me. And, I may care about the team, but that common goal of winning, where it's like, we can have our differences, we can have our my way, your way, but at the
Yep.
end of the day, whatever gets that thing across the finish line in the front is what matters, and
Yep.
I love that about racing, and honestly, sporting and competition in general. It's a common goal, but it's something that
Yep.
I've done as a leader in business, is to like, stop. We're here for one common goal, and that is, revenues, long-term success, operational efficiency, whatever it is, but it's one singular goal to accomplish as a unit. We all have our parts. Yep. And put everything else aside. Yep. If you worry about those things, you're bored. I mean,
everyone plays a role. Everyone is important to the performance of the team. Our high performance coach that travels with us, how she cleans the bottles that go to the pit crew and the drivers, that's really important, because those bottles keep them hydrated. They keep the proper supplements going in, the proper calories going in, so that they can do their job properly. So every little bit helps. I've gone out and gone and picked up decals from a decal maker because we needed it at a certain time. It's not my job to head up as commercial, but it needed to get done, right? Yeah. So they're all important, and we're all in there, as we said, for a common goal, and that's for the performance of the team. And we keep that in mind.
What in this 25-year journey, what's been I always hate to use the word like what's your moment of adversity, but like what is a what was a challenging situation that kind of foundationally helped you in the future?
Well, I have a book of all of my challenging situations here, so I'll have to pick one. There've been so many.
That's a
No,
good
no.
idea.
Huh?
I need one of those. That's a good idea.
Yeah. The question was a challenging situation and what I did to get out of it, type of thing.
Yeah, I think we all run into moments of adversity or something that it's like at the time you think, how do I get out of this? And then 10 years later you're like, had I not been through that season, I don't think I could be where I am today or get through the things that I'm doing now without that moment of adversity, challenge, toughness.
Yeah, I would say I took a CCO role for a startup, super high paying, you know, um, high profile at the time, and there were a lot of issues with the team. I'll say, um, and I think stepping away and leaving that was a big challenge because it was obviously leaving a lot of money and
Mm-hmm.
equity and status. Although, that I shouldn't put that there because that shouldn't be what is a driving factor. But at the time, it was an important component. Um, and so I think finally being able to say I'm out and not have anything at the time set up, not have anything lined up, that was definitely a big challenge. Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that because I think, I don't know, call it what you want, us guys, like
Yeah.
that's our, I mean, that's what we're about professionally is how do I align myself professionally to support my family? How do I, get the things that I need to get?
Yeah.
The title or the accolades of the work that I've put into my career. Like that's your trophy. The
Yeah.
title is your trophy. The compensation allows you to do the things that you want to
And I
do.
really
And
enjoyed the work. I enjoyed what we were
yeah,
building. I enjoyed the company. It had legs. Like we could do it, but there was, at the end of the day, the person that needs to sign contracts and do things needs to do things. And if those things cannot be done, you cannot run a business. And you just can't. It doesn't matter how good your team are. And that was definitely difficult. Um, and yeah, so I think that was one time. And that's the thing is life isn't linear, right? And everyone has challenges, has ups and downs, and I've gone through some amazing experiences and some tremendous lows, and I think about that every day, and everybody does. And I go into conversations with people understanding like, hey, this is par for the course. You don't know what they're going through, right? You don't know
yeah,
what this person is going through on the other end of the line or anything like that. And definitely, I have a lot more. I look a lot more. I look a lot deeper, and I look more in hindsight now than I ever did. Just because I think I've got, I'm in my early 50s, and I think I have, you know, a really nice amount of experiences to draw on. And I've also gone through some amazing executive coaching programs, and I took so much away from them. And so I look at so many situations, issues, problems on a daily basis from 60,000 feet. And I think about all of the experience and all the knowledge, all the education that I've received and where to deploy that from 60,000 feet. And, it's a little bit of insight into kind of the thinking.
yeah. I remember at one point in time, where, you know, obviously I'm a big believer in like stretching and growing. And if I'm not
Yeah.
stretching, you're like slightly uncomfortable with what I'm doing, I'm not pushing hard enough. And I'm not trying to get into like dogmatic motivational videos or anything, but
Yeah.
I remember when after I had started my company and I went to I had gone to an industry event and I was speaking in front of like 1,000 people. And, you know, I just started my company and I was just kind of starting to kind of feel what, like, when you start a company, you have to like determine what you do. Like, nobody says, here's our value proposition. Here's our, you
Right.
know, here's what we do. You create that. So, you know, I'd gone up, I'd given a speech and I had talked and it was very conversational. And a young guy came up to me afterwards and, you know, very young, like recent college grad, like awkwardly uncomfortable.
Sure.
And, you know, he's like, how do you, how do you talk like that? You know? And
Such a good
look,
question. What a great
yeah,
question.
I was like, look, I was the kid in high school and middle school. Like I would shake and sweat when it came to public speaking. And I
Right.
said, I made a decision as a very young professional that this is a skill set I had to have.
Yep.
So I made a mental commitment with myself. It wasn't, you know, anywhere else, that if anyone ever asked me to speak publicly, I would do it, or
Yep.
speak or talk or whatever. And I would do it. And the first time somebody asked me to do it, I was wildly uncomfortable. And, you know, and I did it again and I did it again. And then I learned things like if I wrote out a script, I got lost and nervous and then I would mess up. But if I did like 4 bullets and I just kind of mentally thought through those bullets as I spoke, it came across to the listener very clearly. And so like me, I'm just like mentally exercising a thought
Yeah.
in my head, but to them they were receiving a message. And I said, you have to be able to like do these things in your own mind to grow. And he was just like, I mean, I've never thought of that. And I said, well, the next time somebody asks you to publicly speak, just go do it.
Yeah.
You're the most like in your own mind, you're the only one that notices the discomfort, you know. And if you do things like, you know, use an antiperspirant in the areas where it gets wet, like I have in my career, I can't believe I'm saying this on the show, but like in
Yeah.
my career, I have like run my antiperspirant like up the middle of my stomach.
Right. Because you don't want to see the sweat through
Exactly.
the torso. Sure.
And guess what?
Who hasn't done that?
Because you see it as a speaker and
Right.
you're like, oh man, and then it gets worse.
Yeah.
But if you make it go away, you never think about it. And it's like, as long as you think like that through every problem in life, you're the only one that notices discomfort or
Yeah.
lack of experience or lack of knowledge. And
You probably helped him out tremendously.
I hope so.
Yeah. now he's probably like running sales on a race car team.
Oh, I hope so. I need to have him on the show.
Need to find him.
Oh,
But
what?
I think, you know, salespeople, you know, generally, as we were saying earlier, don't have trouble speaking. So, like public speaking, there was a lot of things I was not good at school, but the public speaking, I was no problem, no issue.
I was terrible. I was so bad. Anything that you see today,
Yeah,
is like it's an entire like book set of your challenging moments in life.
Congrats.
Of like evaluating and overcoming and figuring out. So what advice do you have for young people? Young person around IndyCar says, I want to get into the business. I'm listening to this show. What's my takeaway?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, we had these that's a great question. We had these 3 young ladies who have a motorsports podcast. I think they're like in Detroit or Detroit in Canada. They're from there, and they showed up at a race, like early 20s, and just so excited. And I was just so happy to see them like pursuing their passion, just to learn everything they can in motorsports, meet whoever they can. You know, I was just so excited to see that. And if I were to give advice to starting off in motorsports, I'd say just do everything. Just like try to find every job and do every job. If that's sorting out merchandise, sort out merchandise. You'll learn from it. You'll pull out gems from everything, and you'll gain so much experience just through doing every job possible, and then do as many jobs as you can, get as many internships as you can, and try to figure out your own brain. Are you more engineering side? Are you more commercial side? Are you more maybe hands-on side with mechanical? Like what interests you? What do you like to do? And because the engineering guys are not going to be the sales guys, and the sales guys are not going to be the engineering guys. But I'll tell you what, I don't need to, but I sit in on engineering meetings before and after races and before and after sessions because I can learn, because I don't know that space, and I know I'm going to pull out gems. And I still do it to this day. I sit in on these engineering sessions, or I pull out our mechanics or our pit crew, and I ask questions. I'm not afraid to say, I don't know this, and this. I can put together a proposal deck for a sponsorship, sure. But I want to learn more on the engineering side, because the more I know about the team, the better a salesperson I can be, the more information I have. So I would tell them just to sit in everywhere. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to look like you don't know what you're doing, because you don't know what you're doing. No one knows everything. And just absorb as much as you can and pull out those gems.
Isn't it? Let me see if you agree with this. You hire people, you employ people. When you're around somebody that is genuine, like you can see it, smell it, hear it, that excitement, the passion, and not even like they're a master of the motorsport craft or the role that they're trying to get, but they're excited about life. They're curious. Lee, tell me, like, what do you do all day? Like, those kinds of people like want to learn, they want to grow, they want to do these things. And you oftentimes, and I have found as I have hired people in my past, you try to find a place for that person. So rather than like you coming and sitting with me about, a particular role, you're sitting there going, they're very sales oriented in a digital manner. Right. They're very optimistic. Yep. Like they look like they would be very good and in front of a camera, like, and you're already plotting their career path while they're solely focused on a job. And I think, that's always the advice that I've given people is when you want to shine in the sun, you really got to shine in the sun. And that is oftentimes by high performing people, successful people,
Yep.
people of title, they connect with that. You don't want to hire somebody and have to drag them through their career. You want to hire somebody and almost like just slightly redirect them as they follow this path, excited and curious. Yep. And you're hired, and this is where I want you.
We have a guy on the team that was like that. When I came onto the team, he was just in the wrong role. And he had a lot of really good attributes. It was just like, what can he do? What does he want to do? And he's passionate about car racing, and he loves the team. What is he good at? And we found just the right role for him. We just had to pivot him a little bit, and now he's seeing a lot of great success. He was just in the wrong role. Yeah. And you got to get like the book says, you got to get the good people on the bus. Right? You got to get the right people on the bus. One of my first mentors in business, I asked him, I said, I was a young guy, I was in my early 20s. I said, what do you attribute your success to? And he said, I'll never forget this. And he says, I find good people and I pay them well. So that was one of the gems that I took away.
I think that
it's not easy. Finding good people, it's not easy.
So hard, and it takes a golden handcuff to keep them around. I think that's probably some of the most solid advice any leader or hirer or employer of people could have.
The hardest thing we do is lead.
Yeah.
by far the most difficult job we have, me, my CMO, whoever, any of our other colleagues, the most difficult job is leading, because everybody is led differently. Leading is not something that people go to school for. I mean, I actually did go to school for it. Like, I did take lessons on it, but leading is the toughest thing to do. It's not closing $1 million deal. It's being able to lead all different kinds of people through all different kinds of issues every day. So,
Lee, you honestly, you have been one of the funnest guests that I've had on the show. So, your level of energy is my series going off too. Your level of energy is through the roof, and I can see why you are in the role that you're in and why you're finding success in that role, because you have a I don't know.
It's maniacal. Wow. It's maniacal. I know. So
but you're probably one of the most interesting people at a dinner table. I mean, you have an energy, you have a passion, you have an excitement about you. I can see that. We met, an hour and 10 minutes ago, and it's something about, and I think that serves you really well in the commercial space. I'm very grateful to have you on the show, because that type of personality resounds very well. And
thank you for the time. I mean, I do love what I do, and I have had some really interesting experiences, and it has been a crazy journey. We might need to do a part 2, and I can tell you what I was doing at a suite at the Waldorf Astoria in Dubai, and then being in a motel in the middle of Wisconsin, that looked like serial murderers had lived there. Like, there's a lot there. I'm happy that, you selected me to be on and be able to talk a little bit about motorsports, the business of motorsports, and what I do. And I think it's great because you're also pursuing your passion and pursuing your dream. What is it? It's what's bonding us together. It's car racing, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's bonding us together, is car racing and the business of it. And, so I'm happy to answer anything, anytime.
We're going to have the part 2 business development war stories, like the horror story.
I'm going to have something special for you in about 2 months.
Okay.
That you have to remind me about when it comes to business development.
Well, you're talking to a sales guy, so in literally 2 months, you'll get a ping from me.
It should be in your CRM by the end of the day.
Yes. And I will tell you that every guest I've had on the show has kind of just become a professional, perpetual friend. I have entire WhatsApp. Most of my stuff's in Europe. But, my entire WhatsApp app is specifically towards guests that I've had on the show. And it's, hey, I'm going to be at, Laguna, I'm going to be in Miami. And,
I don't know when this comes out, but we are headed to Laguna next week. And I'm sure I'll see you at St. Louis. But, if anyone's watching this and you haven't looked at IndyCar, watch IndyCar or get the IndyCar app, because the racing is amazing. You've got 10, 12, 15 guys that can win on any weekend. The elbows being out on the racetrack and the strategies that are deployed on the racetrack are amazing. And it is just, I think, such great racing. So I encourage anyone to, if they're not watching IndyCar, watch IndyCar, and then of course root for our 77 and 78 cars.
It's so much more immersive to me than any other racing series out there. And I don't know what a paddock pass in IndyCar costs. It's like $200 or $300. You are within 5 feet of a car and a crew working on the car. You're so immersed in the event itself, versus, being kind of quarantined in certain areas at a Formula One race, albeit an amazing experience.
Yeah.
You're just because it's a manufacturer series, you can't go watch an engine get put together.
There they're different products. Listen, Formula One has their product. I love Formula One. It is a lifestyle. It's a different product than NASCAR. It's a different product than IndyCar. But if you just like car racing, I think Rally is an amazing platform to watch. But IndyCar, I think, is really great car racing. You know, they're just different products. Next season will be on Fox, so the IndyCar season will be carried on Fox, which I think is going to do amazing things for viewership. They'll have the Daytona 500 and the Indy 500, so we'll have 17 races next season, but 19 different time slots because they'll carry qualifying for the 500. So I think that's going to do wonders for us, you know, for those of us in the sport.
I agree. Lee, seriously, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Ryan.
I've enjoyed this.
Yeah, so I'll see you at St. Louis at the race.
I will be there.
Thank you for the time. Appreciate it.